Hey everyone. As I'm sure a lot of you have heard by now, there's been a tragedy in Canada regarding two young boys who were strangled by a 14-foot, 100-pound python. Some articles claim the snake was 10 feet, some say 15 feet. No one seems to have a definitive figure. The reports go that Noah and Connor Barthe were sleeping on the couch when the python entered and strangled them. The boys were staying at their father's friend's house, whose name is Jean-Claude Savoie. Savoie is a pet shop owner whose shop is below his apartment. He states that the python escaped through a hole at the top of its tank, crawled through an air vent, and entered the apartment. It then strangled both boys. Since then, a memorial service has been held for the boys and the python has been euthanized. The necropsy report showed that the snake was healthy. A preliminary autopsy of the boys states cause of death as asphyxiation. I feel I need to talk about this because there are so many holes in this story that I just cannot agree with. The first piece of evidence I'm going to talk about is that the articles never say the victims were asphyxiated by the snake, just asphyxiated. And there are ways to tell, either with handprints or internal blood pooling prints, which could be snake but might be cloth. They should send the kids through an MRI and see just how much O2 gas escaped the trachea and how far, as well as the severity of the crushing. Also, more noticeably, they should see if the boys' shoulders were displaced or if there was crushing anywhere else in the body, as snakes just don't go for the neck. The largest question I can think of is, where are the bites? Pythons may be constrictors, but they still bite. They have teeth, even if they're just little barbs. They don't have fangs, but they still have teeth. And a python that's 10 to 14 feet long or whatever is going to have huge teeth. It's going to leave huge bites and a lot of blood. Even babies can draw blood. So an article quoted Savoie as stating to officials, "I thought the snakes were sleeping until I saw the hole in the ceiling. I turned the lights on and I saw this horrific scene." Savoie claims he caught the python in his living room, pinned it down, and put it in a cage. It's ridiculous. I can't believe this is real. Furthermore, the autopsy results followed the disclosure by Canadian authorities that the python did not escape from the pet store below the apartment where the boys slept as previously believed. They claimed that the snake was a household pet kept inside the apartment where Noah Barthe 4 and Connor Barthe 6 were visiting. I have another question. Why would the shop owner have a hole right above the tank? Admittedly, snakes do burrow, but usually only through soft substrate like aspen shavings and moss, but not ceilings. And if it did burrow through the ceiling, it would have made a huge mess, a shit ton of noise. There would have been scraps of plaster or ceiling tile or whatever. It would have been all over the tank, which Savoie should have clearly noticed way before this tragedy happened. How does the owner not know where his snakes are? Was the snake in the tank or was it free range? And on top of all of this, the guy had no license. Quote from an article: Steve Bentow, spokesman for the Provincial Natural Resources Department, said the agency had not issued a permit for the python. Police also contacted Bry Loyst, a curator of the Indian River Reptile Zoo in Ontario, who said the investigators told him that it wasn't the first time the python broke free from its cage. If your python has a history of breaking from its cage, you would think you would take a couple extra precautions to keep the python retained in its enclosure. From the same article, quote, Dave Rose, the uncle of the two brothers, said the family will try to remember them for the fun lives they had. He said before the sleepover, the boys spent the day swimming, shopping, and visiting a family farm. Dave says, they played with llamas and goats and horses. They played with dogs and cats in the hayloft. They went for a ride in the farm tractor, which I'm told they even let them steer the tractor so they had a super day. Another problem I'm seeing, and I don't want to imply anything here, but it just makes me wonder. The kids had this wonderful day playing with animals and driving tractors. To me, it sounds just a little like someone may have been guilty of premeditated murder and felt the boys deserved a nice day out before they died. Don't get me wrong, guys. I feel terrible these boys died. The snake is dead too. There's 3 deaths that I feel are all completely wrong. In the necropsy report, it showed the snake was perfectly healthy. It wasn't starving or diseased with some child-killing tumor. So why kill 2 boys? Were the boys as thick around as the fattest part of the snake's girth? If not, the snake probably wouldn't have struck, especially if it was healthy. If it did strike, it would have eaten, or at least tried. There would have been some sort of telltale markings all over those boys, crushed areas of the upper body, severe hemorrhaging. Most of my pythons always snap the spine and make the noses bleed on their mice. Snakes also like to chew on the stomachs as well. Was there evidence of that? Another quote. If a snake sees an animal moving, giving off heat, and smells like a goat, what is it? It's a goat. The reasonable explanation of how this happened is that they had been playing with farm animals. They did smell like their prey items, and the snake sadly enough mistook them as a food item when they weren't. A snake expert said it was possible that the python was spooked and simply clung on to whatever it landed on. Snake expert John Kendrick was quoted as saying, "Once they are in constricting mode, any part of their body that is touching something that moves, they'll wrap it. I've seen snakes with 2 different prey items at the same time, one with the back of the body and one with the front. It could have been an incident like that." My problem. It's unlikely. Snakes usually go one prey at a time, so I'm wondering why the second boy didn't wake up and scream. The snake wasn't around his neck at the time. And where were the parents? Where were the adults? Why were these young kids left all by themselves? Why was there a rumored 3rd child, Savoir's son, in his bedroom who heard nothing? I feel that a python that big is going to knock something over when it curls around their victim. It's too convenient to me that this incident happened on a couch, which would be very quiet, and while the boys were sleeping. I don't want to agree with other Yahoo commenters and say the kids were killed for insurance money, perhaps even drugged, so they didn't struggle. But I'm not entirely sure Uncle Jean-Claude had the boys' best interests at heart. Pictures have surfaced of the Burke boys and Savoie's own son cleaning out large reptile tanks. They look like they're having fun helping out, but they're wet and in their underwear. Not saying he's a pedo, but it's a little strange. Why not put them in swimming trunks or something? Besides, who lets a freaking 4-year-old play in snake shit? Not only that, but why not have the kids get a bath after playing with farm animals all day? Now, I mean absolutely no disrespect here. I feel awful these boys went through what they did, but the entire thing seems sketchy. There's holes all throughout these reports, and maybe the news isn't publishing everything it knows. Maybe the boys were bitten, although it doesn't seem that way, as one expert claims the snake simply latched on in a moment of being spooked. Ultimately, though, I don't think this was the snake's fault, and out of respect for Noah and Connor Barthe, I hope the real killer is caught. Thanks for listening.